I managed to get into Grandmaster for Marvel Rivals extremely easy, and I honestly believe pretty much anyone can get into Grandmaster for this game. So let me give you a rundown of all my tips and strategy that might help you in your ranked experience. And if you're new here or find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed, why not? It's completely free and you're coming back anyways. And only a little over 1% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So instead of endlessly searching, might as well subscribe so I stay relevant on your timeline. That's enough yapping for me, let's get started. Now, it wouldn't be a true journey to Grandmaster Marvel Rivals if you didn't start at the lower ranks. We begin our journey to Grandmaster all the way at the bottom in Bronze. In the Bronze rank of Marvel Rivals, players often face common challenges that prevent them from climbing the ladder. One of the biggest factors is that you're just getting familiar with the game. Now, it can be very overwhelming with so many characters, maps, and a ton of new mechanics. If you have this feeling of being overwhelmed, let me give you a few tips. First and foremost, play as much as you can. Try out all the characters to learn their abilities and roles. Now trust me, when I first downloaded this game, I was very overwhelmed. There's a lot to take in. So you just want to focus on learning and improving at your own pace. Sure, there's guides on characters and specific settings that you should run and whatever, but honestly, if you watch those guides without just playing the game, you're gonna be pretty lost. Now, at the end of the day, it is a video game, so you don't need to rush to become skilled right away. Instead, focus on enjoying the game while absorbing it. And honestly, while just enjoying the game, you just might get better at it. I feel like there's too many people that want to be the #1 player or just want to be the best of the best, but you're always gonna have the casual side. That's why when I play matches of quick play, I'm usually reclined in my chair just playing for fun. Now, while you're at the lower ranks or you're not even playing ranked in general, this is the perfect time to really perfect your settings. Now, when it comes to a tactical first-person shooter or a competitive one, I always aim to have the highest and most consistent FPS. So typically we're going to be turning down the visual quality of our game to ensure we have higher FPS so we get less latency lag and things like that. Then of course you always want to be having the perfect mouse sensitivity for yourself. Now, a good rule of thumb that I always give is make sure you can at least do one full 360 in game on your mouse pad. If you can't, then you might need to tweak your settings. Now, I would always avoid super extreme sensitivities because it could be pretty difficult to aim with unless that's your personal preference or whatever. Now, while you are at the lower ranks, you don't really need to stress about team compositions or uncoordinated teammates. In my eyes, you can pretty much climb out of Bronze with any team composition if you just focus on yourself. So progressing through Bronze requires familiarizing yourself with the game, optimizing all of your settings to fine-tune to yourself, and your whole goal is to get a general understanding of the game. And as you climb the ranks, you're going to be met with different challenges, so you always want to keep an open mind. Then we've earned our rank up, we're now in Silver, and in Silver rank, you generally have a good understanding of how the game flows compared to Bronze, but matches can still feel pretty unpredictable. Now, there's a major problem that I see in the Silver ranks and even higher up is staggering. I spectate my friends' match all the time, and this is always the key problem. A lot of the time when a team gets wiped, the players that got wiped enters back into the fight one by one, leading to repeated deaths without regrouping. Now, I highly encourage you to make sure you're not part of that problem. Group with your teammates as much as possible before engaging in fights. If your teammates won't follow you, just adapt with them. Cause trust me, it can get very frustrating and it's essentially a never winning battle. With that being said, you have to then start analyzing your deaths, because each time you die or each time you fail, it always leaves room to improve. In the back of your mind, you should always have these key questions, especially when it comes to dying. Things like, were you out of position or too far from your team? Did you overextend? And could this situation have been avoided entirely? Now, my biggest advice is to use the replay system in Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals has a very good replay system and can make a giant difference when it comes to making repeat mistakes. Now, while we're in Silver, there's a couple key things we want to keep in mind. Firstly, we want to master our ultimate usage. Why is it critical? Effective ultimate usage can decide whether your team wins or loses. And usually the biggest factor is to evaluate whether your ultimates are actually impactful. Will you using your ultimate actually do something for your team? Will it turn a team fight? Will it save your team from getting wiped? that's most of the time how I determine to use my ults. Following that, you need to be intentional with abilities. The common issue is that many players waste abilities without a clear reason, such as using heals, shields, or buffs in low impact situations. A better approach is to understand the purpose of each ability and use them only when necessary, such as during pushes or to counter threats. And again, you can always use the fantastic tool of the replay system to get a better understanding of your timings. So what is the key takeaway that I want to be learning when I'm in silver? To climb out of silver, focus on avoiding unnecessary deaths, making better use of your ultimate, and using abilities thoughtfully. These are small yet impactful changes that can significantly improve your consistency. Now we come to our rank of gold. Now I still consider this on the lower end, and what a lot of players have referred to as ELO hell, both gold and plat. Now when you enter gold, the whole game shifts. It shifts towards requiring a deeper understanding of strategy and tactics. So it's less about the basics, but more about strategy. So firstly, you want to start identifying threats better. You want to be aware of ultimate-based threats. And hopefully by now, you start understanding predictable moves from certain characters like Psylocke, Black Panther. You can start to get a understanding of where characters are going to be positioning and moving to. So again, you want to start developing answers. Position yourself to neutralize threats and avoid wasting time or energy venting frustrations, instead and focus on strategies to counter these threats efficiently. Nobody likes a negative Nancy. Now there's a big concept that a lot of people have always talked about when it comes to a game like this. It was also very big and popular in Overwatch or any hero-based shooter, is the push and pull concept. You push when you have an advantage. If your team has numbers advantage, for example, if someone gets eliminated on the other team, you push aggressively to finish off opponents and secure objectives. And then it's quite literally the opposite. Pull back when you're at a disadvantage. If you're outnumbered, there's really no reason to go in and just keep dying. And most of the time when enemies use very strong ultimates like Mantis, Lunar Snow, try to avoid fighting within it. You always want to try to focus on surviving rather just running in willy-nilly. From there, you want to start prioritizing objectives and manage resources. You want to differentiate between temporary progress, like moving a payload but there's no capture point, versus going and pushing the payload to secure the new spawns. And you never want to overcommit to a fight. And you also want efficient ultimate usage. Use ultimates in balanced fights like a 6v6, 5v5, 4v4, and so on, rather than trying to salvage like a 2v5. Turning a close fight in your favor is far more reliable than banking on a perfect, the best ultimate you've ever seen to coin flip a losing one. Although you could say you have the Hail Mary of Iron Man ultis that wipes all 6, then well, that's amazing, but the chances of that happening are pretty much slim to none. But what is our key takeaway from gold? So in the gold rank, we introduce the need for strategic thinking and delayed decisions making. Focus on recognizing threats, syncing with your team, and saving resources for moments that truly matter. Knowing all of these things will definitely give you a huge edge against your opponents. Now you finally climbed out the pits of gold and reached platinum. Reaching platinum is definitely a very good milestone, but to stay in platinum and move to diamond, it's going to require a lot. Firstly, role responsibilities really starts to show and be a significant matter. And with each role, they all have their different goals. Firstly, for tanks, you hold objectives, create space, and apply pressure. For DPS players, your primary goal is to control off angles, pressure enemies from multiple positions, and secure key eliminations. And when it comes to support players, your primary goal is to keep teammates sustained, mitigate enemy aggression, and support pushes with utility and damage. And you always want to adapt your approach based on your hero's unique strengths and the specific needs of the match. Now, a major factor is you actually need to understand the different team compositions and dynamics of this game. For example, you need to understand what your team does well. If you have a diving team, or if you have a more mid to long range team, or if you have a more bruiser team that's going to be up close fighting. And you always want to be mindful to be able to counter the enemy strategy. And you also need to learn how to adapt your playstyle. But if you don't really care about what I've just yapped about, here is the key takeaways that I recommend you learning. Firstly, Platinum challenges you to think more strategically about your role, the team's strengths, and how to counter the opponent's game plan. By mastering these fundamentals, roles, compositions, win conditions, and positioning, you'll not only thrive in Platinum, but also set yourself up for success in Diamond and beyond. Congrats, you've made it to the Diamond rank. or high elo. Firstly, you'll be introduced to the ban system, deciding with your team what characters to ban. Pretty cool, right? Now there is some key things to know. Once you reach Diamond, the ability to recognize when a fight can still be won, despite being outnumbered, is essential. High-level players often commit to fights even when they're at a disadvantage because they see the conditions that make victory possible. For example, your team is in, say, a 2v4 situation, but the enemy has no ultimates or resources really left. However, on the flip side, the two players on your team have very solid ultimates. If they use their ultimates, they can completely flip the fight. Now, to succeed at Diamond level and beyond, you must understand how your heroes match up against each other. Now, I have a whole counter video that I just made and uploaded, so make sure to check that out. But every hero has its strengths, and of course, every hero has its weaknesses. If you're a support who struggles against Black Panther, learn how to position yourself or time your abilities to avoid getting caught, or simply change the hero you're playing. You always want to put yourself at the advantage against the counter you're playing. Now this can be sad to a lot of players, but when you're in Diamond and higher, stop being a one trick. You need to expand your hero pool, because say for instance, the one trick that you're playing gets banned. Then well, what do you pick now? And besides that, sometimes you need to flex off the character you one trick to help your team. Or just consider creating a bigger hero pool. There's no reason why you shouldn't know at least one or two characters of each role. It's just going to make your life a whole lot easier and going to reduce the overall toxicity that players can have when you're not playing the right character. Now at the Diamond rank, you need to assess when it's worth taking risks. The goal is to evaluate the situation and make decisions that maximize your chances of victory. Now what is the takeaway? So climbing through Diamond requires skill and fight evaluation, resetting at the right moments, understanding matchups, flexibility in roles, and balancing risks with reward. Mastering these elements will set you up for success and help you reach even higher ranks. Now that you've made it to Grandmaster or GM, there's a lot you need to take in. Firstly, you need to not only be flexible, but you also need to excel at every hero you play. Even if you don't flex often or the character that you usually play isn't banned, let me tell you, if you're playing a character that you play a lot, you need to be very good with it. Because if you're not very good at it, then the problems and faults in your playstyle will definitely show. And most of the time by now, GM players will be able to understand your faults and really exploit and abuse that. In Grandmaster, it's common for the enemy team to get on a roll, capturing objectives one after another, otherwise known as the snowball effect. This is prevalent in a lot of games like Overwatch, Valorant. You have to be able to stop that momentum, whether that's being turn small fights in your favor or just focus on impactful plays. Because if you don't stop the snowball effect, you're ultimately just gonna lose the match. And there is a time where there's problematic players. At this level, you'll encounter players who are exceptionally good at certain characters, and it can be quite frustrating to play against them. Trust me, I have PTSD against Psylocke players, and I don't think that's ever gonna go away. I still have nightmares. But the best way to deal with it is to develop counter strategies. When you face a strong player, just adjust your playstyle. You want to minimize their impact as best as possible. Now with all of that, you need to have advanced map knowledge. You need to understand the flanking routes, where health packs are located across the map, know where spawns are going to be changing once a payload is captured or anything like that. Now regardless, here are my key takeaways for being in Grandmaster, and this also works for top 500 and above Eternity as well. By mastering flexibility, strategic thinking, and advanced map knowledge, you'll be equipped to handle the challenges in Grandmaster and beyond. Keep improving these skills and you'll be well on your way to dominate the top ranks. Now, of course, this guide isn't 100% perfect and it's actually going to reflect how you do in a game, but it was just me giving you my tips and strategies to climb out of these quote-unquote elo hells. But anyways, hopefully this video has helped you in any way, shape, or form. But regardless, I hope you have a great day, and well, I'll catch you in the next one.